Today's session, of course, we would be starting off with a little introduction to GMAT CR. Now, how many of you here are first timers? I mean, when I say first timers, in the sense who've not taken the GMAT. So, anyone here anyone here who's not taken the GMAT at all, first time is going to be taking the GMAT. Okay. So there are a few of you. Okay. And others present here, many of you have taken GMAT, as I assume, since you have not written a yes. So I'm sure there are retakers here also. So the agenda today, of course, is to have a little brief of what GMAT is all about, CR is all about in GMAT, common traps and logical flaws that you see, and we will try to see this, apply this with 3 CR questions. So since time is short, let's see how best you can take some value out of today's session. Now, of course, so broad, when I look at the family, when I actually, just give me a minute. Now, CR on the GMAT, if I really see, is, we all know, ideally it's 10 questions is what we look at, but a range of 9 to 10 that we are seeing. So we all know that the verbal section has a total of how many questions? We've got 36 questions. So out of the 36 we have around, I would look at 10 questions per se. Some say 11, but ideally 9 to 10 questions is what figures out of the total 36 questions that we see in 65 minutes, right? This is what my GMAT verbal section is all about. Now, the ideal time for each question should be around 90 seconds to 120 seconds. So I will say 1.5 minutes to maximum 2 minutes is a target. Yes. So there are some questions that you can wrap it up in 1 minute also. And there are some to take us 2.5. But this is an ideal time that you should be practicing. So ideally, if I look at around 10 questions, so I would say some 15 minutes out of the 65 minutes should be invested in critical reasoning. Now, very important, these are 3 things that I would like to start the session with. First, if you really want to become a star in critical reasoning, it's important that you be focused on what is stated. So this also becomes very, very important. So more than your creative mind, you have to pay attention. If you narrow down your focus on what is given, it becomes very important. So what is given would be the stated conclusion and the stated premise. So for first timers, of course, conclusion would be nothing but the final say of the author, the main argument of the passage per se that we talk of. And premise, I would say, is the stated information or the stated evidence that we can talk of, or what I also call as data points. So these are synonymous words that you can take into consideration. So this is on a layman terms is what we are seeing, is what we will pay attention to. Next, you have to be smart enough to recognize the flaws and be observant of deviation in options. So all my given options, how are they deviating from the stated paragraph? The stated data is something that you have to be observant enough. And finally, we have to remember that the correct answer will satisfy the question requirement. This actually is very, very important. This is your VIP. Rather, I would say very, very important VIP. It is just not important. This is the most important criteria that you have to pay attention to. Okay, taking this ahead. So this is just a general brief that I have just mentioned. Let's move. So look at the CR question types. Now, this that you see that I have written is something. So students who have already taken GMAT, who might have an ESR with them, would know that GMAT ideally buckets the CR questions in these 2 families. So if you really look at an ESR, the ESR is, of course, after you take the test and the score report that comes in, you will see that there is something called as analysis and critic and construction and plan. So ideally, both of these are nothing but taken under this. So we've got this huge 1 bucket. So there are, I would say, 3 CR question types, broad buckets that I can talk of. Out of the broad buckets, one is the assumptions that we look at. Then we'll have something on the content of the argument. Content would be what exactly is exactly stated, the exact stated family, I would call. And if I say assumption, assumption would be more of the implicit family, the thing that is true as per the para, but not explicitly stated per se. And then I have something on the structure. So this is technically the way the author has written the paragraph. So the way of writing is something that we will be testing you upon. So of course, today's session is not about explaining all of them. It was just to give you an overview of what different CR questions that you can expect. Primarily, what we will be looking at is this segment. We will be seeing this segment in today's session where the different flaws that you can see or the errors that you can see will majorly be seen here and also in this particular segment. So taking ahead, let's move. So I'm sure everyone's come in as such. I think it's just taking it a little slow. Yeah. So it's 4:10. I think we are good to start with the topic. Now, there are 5 common traps in CR. Today's class will be aiming at these 5 traps. So the flow of the session would be, I would be taking you across all these 5 in a little theoretical manner. We will be discussing them with little examples. And then once this is done, the next segment will be, we will apply all of that we've learned. So we will be solving some questions. Solve 3 CR question types. That's the agenda that I have today. So let's go with the first one. Causation and correlation. Now, what do you understand by the term causation? You can write down in the chat box. What do you understand by the term causation? What do you think? If you can write down in the chat, it'll be nice. What is this term? Okay, so it says A causes B. So causation, the word itself speaks of cause and effect. Okay, cool. What do you mean by correlation? Correlation. Is it one and the same? Is causation and correlation one and the same? To correlate. What would this be? Are they one and the same? First thing. So correlation. They are. Okay, cool. So correlation, can I say that X is parallel to Y? This is correlation. Can I say this is a correlation? X relation whereby something is a result depends on the other. Okay, so we can, let's see. So let's move to the, so if I say this, so technically speaking, if I'm looking at flaws, I'm looking at all of this, ideally what is CR all about? Let's understand when I talk of CR, or when I talk of any passage given to me, what exactly does a passage contain? A passage basically will have a story, right? And this story, I would say there are elements in a story. Can I say there are characters in a particular story? So, or events that are there in a story. So this is something that will be present in the story. Ideally, this story, how does this story come into play? This story is about the relationship between the stated characters. Can I say that this story is about the relationship between the stated characters? Do you agree that a story will only take place if there is some relationship between all the elements that are present? Otherwise, a story can never happen. If A and B are inanimate objects and they do nothing, we will never have a story. Story can only happen if there is some action that is taking place. So an act becomes very, very important. Now, when we look at this, so can I say it is purely about the different kind of relationships that we see. So if I say if X and Y occur together, then X can lead to Y. Now, is this statement factually true? Is this statement true? Is this true? No, false. Perfect. Very good. Why? Now that is where the whole logic comes into picture. Because what is the whole thing? If X and Y, they occur together, I can say that X can be parallel to Y. So there are two people walking on the same road. Maybe I cannot say that X is, if X, then Y. I cannot say that. Or vice versa. I cannot say if Y, then X, right? Because there can be another parameter who might be impacting the presence of X and Y. There can be a third party. Everyone agrees, right? There can be a third party cause for X and Y, or it can be either for X or Y or both of them. So a very important thing that we have to understand is whenever in a paragraph, they may be correlated, but definitely not causing Y. So whenever we are reading the passage, it's essential skill as for a CR solver that while you are reading a particular para, so while you read the question body, you need to be observant. Very important. You need to be observant with respect to how the elements are related. Elements are related. It is very, very important. If they are occurring together, it cannot mean that they can lead, X leads to Y. This is factually 100, I would say, not, rather I will not say 100%. So should I say 100% false? Just think. Can I say 100% false? Is it a right thing to write 100% false? Or can I say it is maybe? What do you think? What will be a better thing to write? What say? So here is a very important thing that I've just asked. Maybe. Very good. This is where CR comes in. A very important aspect of CR is that is it 100% false or 99% possible? This is something that you have to be very careful. So this can lead to Y, maybe, but I cannot say maybe, but I cannot say always valid. This is something which will be wrong. This is always is 100% false, but maybe is something that I can say. Clear with this? So let's move ahead and let's see that. Let's look at this. Yes, we can say 99%. That is where. So it can be, but I do not have. So but CR, the essence behind CR is to understand when can I use a conclusion which is 100% valid. So whenever you're looking for an answer and you're caught between an XY pair, the trick here is to decide between which of the options actually would be 100% true. So you are like always valid under every condition. And which one would be probably. So in Hindi, so in our vernacular tongue, we have the word ho sakta hai. So whenever we say ho sakta hai, can be for anything, maybe, may not be, there is a doubt, I know this option cannot work with my correct answer. So let's look at this little question. Can you give me an answer? Very simple question. Statement 1 and 2. Which one you can say is 100% true? Statement 1 and 2. Which one would be 100% true? 2. Perfect. Very good. Now, very important is, look at this carefully. I don't know. Visually, do you see this? Visually, is this seen? Can you see this? There are other factors. Can you see that? Can you see this part visually? 100%. Is it written there in the para? Yes or no? No. But what is there in the para that gives us clue? Very clearly, very simple. I am saying that in India, among whatever attributed to this. In China, however, among this are nearly as high as this, and individual is much lower. But I know that one thing is sure, that I can see that salt is not the star. Salt is not the only factor. This is something that I can say. It is not the only factor. Everyone agrees to this? From my given evidence, I can say that salt is not the only factor, right? So when I come down here, if most people use this instead of this, rate of this would drop rapidly. Can I be 100% sure? Can I be 100% sure here? No, maybe, but I cannot be 100% sure, right? So there is a maybe possibility, maybe, but is so. Hence, this can't be a conclusion. Since it's a maybe, it can't be our 100% conclusion, right? But when I say there are other factors besides this, so I am not negating. Please realize I am not negating salt. Salt is there, but I'm only saying that salt is not the only factor that you see. So when salt is not the only factor, so I can be sure that 100% true as per given data that other factors can also follow. Do you agree to that? Can also follow, right? So this is the stark difference between a 99% possibility versus a 100% true. So whenever it is a conclusion or whenever it is CR, we will always keep this in mind. Okay, good to go. Can we move ahead? So I hope everyone's understood the difference between 100% and 99% and why 100% becomes important. Let's move. Now, this is a very, very important thing. So one that we saw was a correlation. Correlation can never be same as causation, right? This is something we saw. Now, under causation itself, there is a very, very important trap. A very important trap is between the word only if and if. Are they one and the same? Is only if and if one and the same? What do you think? So only if it rains, I play. And if it rains, I play. Are these statements one and the same? Yes or no? So if I say, if it rains, I play. And I say, only if it rains, I play. They are definitely not the same. So even you can technically look at it. Visually, there's a word only. Obviously, that's changing the intent and the strength of the author's feeling, right? So that is something not different. So let's look at it. Very simple logic. Always remember, whenever I have these words like if, or, so just give me a minute. I'll just erase this and I will get into explaining what this is all about. So a very important trick that we learned today. When I say if X, then Y, anything that is followed after these words, after these indicators, so I would call them as the tonal indicators. They are the condition indicators. All of these are nothing but conditions that we talk of. So if condition and an only if condition. This is nothing but a cause for me. And this I would call is the effect, right? So this is the premise. And this I would say is my conclusion. Now, if I say if X, then Y, right? So what does this mean? Always, whenever I am saying if, then the cause would always be one. Now, when I say one, it means it is one of many. So there can be many causes. There can be many. This is one of the many causes for what? For the effect. The effect here becomes the dominator in the relationship. My conclusion is the dominator. So there are many causes, one of many causes for my common effect, right? So let's see here. If I say X is taking place. So for example, it is raining. So can I say that Y will also take place? X followed by Y. Is this relationship 100% valid? Is this 100% valid? If cause 1 is happening, can I say that my effect is also taken place? Everyone agrees to that? Because this is the dominator, this is ruling. So I always, I have this little diagram that I keep in mind. Yes, it's a sufficient thing. I always keep this in mind. So this is my effect, and I have C1 cause 1. This is a cause 2, and this is a cause n. So there are n number of causes. So if this is the dominator, C1 is taking place, it automatically means that my effect is going to be taking place. But can I say, if Y is taking place, can I be 100% sure that X has taken place? Can I say this? Can I say this? Why? Because for my effect E, I have N also, I have 2. So I have N number of causes. I can only say 99% cases X can be the cause. X can be the cause. Do you agree to this? There is 99% possibility that X can be the cause, but not 100%, right? Do you agree to this, everyone? So definitely, when I say this is not about 100% aspect that we look at. So this, of course, will work. This, I would say, is an invalid relationship. But this is something that I can be, because it is 99% possibility, not 100. Let's move to the next. Not X. Not X. So X is not taking place. So can I be 100% sure? Can I be 100% sure that Y will also not take place? Can I say this? X is not there, so Y will also not take place. Why? Because of the same logic. What is the same logic? I have other causes. This is one of the many causes. So for Y, maybe there is cause 2. Maybe there is cause 3. So this is again a 99% possibility. It is definitely not a 100% possibility. I would say this is invalid. This is 99, not 100. Clear with this, everyone? So let's move to the next. The last one. What about the last one? Is this valid? Can I say this is valid? Yes, I can definitely say. Why? Because if this is removed, if my effect is removed by default, so my dominator is 0. If my dominator is 0, automatically who will get removed? All my causes will cease to occur. So moment my effect does not occur, automatically 100% none of the causes have taken place, have occurred, right? So this so for a relationship for if X then Y, definitely only this is valid and this is my valid one. Only these two are valid. So the whole essence behind teaching you this is moment the if case becomes only if. Moment the if changes to only if. Do you agree that the order and relationship will automatically change? Or will it be one and the same? So whenever it is an only if, do you think it will automatically change? So let's see what it can be. There will be a change. So let's look at the change. What do you think the change would be? So I will just write down the little change here. So all will be valid. Are you sure all will be valid? Just think carefully. Everyone can think. You can write down. What do you think? All will be valid or which one will be valid? So I'm going to say only if X, then Y. So what diagram would I have? Only if X, then Y. So this X becomes the only cause. This is the only cause. Only cause. So if this is my only cause, ideally, what would come into picture? If this is the only cause, can I say that for this, if X is taking place, which one should come first? X taking place, Y will be 100% valid. Can I say that? Or if Y is taking place, X will be 100% valid. Which will be specific to this? Which one? Between X and Y? Anyone? Both, of course. Anything else? What about the negation? What about the negation? When I look at not, what would I take with not? Both negations. Think logically now. Okay, I'll do this for you now. Very simple logic. I'm just going to write this for you. I specifically, technically, this should not have been taught today, but then I'm teaching this. Let's just pay attention to this. When I say only if cause, then effect. This becomes only cause. And this becomes one of many effects. One of many effects. Now look at this. So based on this understanding, I would say the diagram would be, I have common cause C, I have effect 1, I have effect 2, and I have effect N. There are N number of effects here, right? So now when I do this particular relationship, look logically. I am saying that my cause is taking place. C is taking place. Perfect. So can I be 100% sure that effect 1 will take place always? Can I be 100% sure that effect 1 will take place always? Yes or no? Always. Can I say that? Yes or no? Think logically. Always. Effect 1 will always be there. This is one of many. So along with effect 1, but I'll have effect N also, right? So very important. Can I say, is there exclusivity in this? Is there exclusivity? As per my main statement, there is no, there in first case, there can also be other effects, but there can be other effects. But my question in my para, so suppose in my question body, I am saying only if it rains, I play. So my story is only about raining and playing, right? I cannot be 100, others will also come in. So there's a problem of exclusivity. But between this, I can be always sure that if effect 1 is taking place, 100% sure who has taken place, my C has taken place. So please remember this little rule that whenever you have only if, this is the first valid statement. This is the first valid sequence that follows. First valid sequence that follows. Please remember this. Why? Because in this is exclusive to my given data in the para. Exclusive to it. In this, there will be other effects also that can be formed, which I may not be aware of. I don't see it in my para. So when it comes in the option, this is the ordering that you have to take into consideration. I'm not saying the first one is wrong, but between the first and the second, E1 followed by C is always given first preference. Remember this. Next, negation. Who should be negated first? Who is the dominator in this relationship? Is effect the dominator or cause the dominator? Who is the dominator in an only if case? That is a necessary condition. In this, remember, the cause is my dominator. Whenever there is a negation case, remember this, whenever there is a negation, whenever there is a not, the dominator will always be present. So I will always negate the dominator first. Moment my dominator is negated, I can be 100% sure that who has been negated? Negation of all my effects. All my effects have been negated. this is always valid, always valid. But if I negate E1, suppose I have negated E1, can I be 100% sure? Can I be 100% sure that so if this is not taking place, can I be sure that cause has not taken place? 100%. Can I say that? Think logically. I can't, because it could have been 100%. I can't, because it could have been that it started but something due to some reason, because my main premise is saying this is the cause. If this is the cause, this is the effect, but I don't know the effect is not taken place. It's a negation. I'm saying effect is not taken place. It's not happened, but my main premise doesn't tell me why the effect is not taking place. My main premise is telling me why the effect will take place. So that is where the basic difference is. This is how CR becomes tricky. You have to stick to the para. This is may or may not. It may or may not, because there can be a different reason for this particular negation of the effect. This is invalid. Please remember. So there's a little thing that I just explained here. So the essence behind showing you this was nothing but to explain how there is so much of understanding between this little word only and this little word if. So do not undermine the power of these words. These words definitely change the order and relationship between events. Okay, clear? Can we move to the next? The next, that is, now this I'll go a little fast, the remaining ones, and then we'll go to the questions per se. So this is a comparison trap. So let's see, what does it mean? Is this one and the same? A like B versus A equal to B. Is it one and the same? Do you think A like B is same as A equal to B? Does similar mean same? No, very good. Yes, it doesn't mean the same. So when I look at it, so do you think this green will like this? So when I say like, it is similar to. Like is similar. Is growing as this partly due to, okay. Hence, just as it happened in this Cityville, public hygiene will be biggest challenge. Can I say this? Is this conclusion valid? Is this valid? Is this valid? Can I say that with 100% surety? I can't, because this is similar. There can be other factors also, right? There can be other factors. So when I say like does not mean equal to. They are not. Similar means the same. Similar does not mean the same. Please remember this. Similar does not mean the same. A very important. So, these kind of question bodies is what comes in your AVA also. It would also come in your flaw type of questions. So they might ask you, what is the flaw? What is the flaw in this particular statement? The flaw is I'm assuming similar to be exactly same. The just as is it is my trap. Okay, clear? Can we move? Next, statistics. Okay, what about this? Let's look at this. Percentage equal to actual value. So I am saying my Coke consumption increased by 100% and my Pepsi consumption decreased by 100%. Can I say 100% surety, 100% surety that I drank more cans of Coke than Pepsi? I can't, right? Yes or no? How many of you have a doubt here? When I say, so what is the difference? What is the difference? I am using here percentage, right? And here I'm saying more cans. This is count. This is actual number that I am talking of, right? So it depends on now increase. So maybe I just had one can of Pepsi, Coke. Maybe I just had one, and today then I just had another one. I just had two. The second one. So basically, now here the next day I'm having two cans per se. So maybe I'm having just give me a minute. So maybe day one, I am going to be having day one, I had one can, and day two, I just had two cans. I had two cans, right? Yes, I do see an amazing increase. I see a jump. But here, it might be that day one, or maybe for that matter, the first day, I had some 2 cans, 3 cans maybe. And day two, I had some 2 cans. Suppose, right? So, but total number of cans is 5 here, right? And this is 3. So can I predict this always? Can I be 100% sure? Can I? Never. So remember, this is a very important flaw. I can never be. So percentage and actual value is, you cannot be 100% sure of the actual number. Clear with this? So this is a very, very important trap that we have to pay attention, and CR loves this. A lot of statistic based questions that work on this. So let's look at this. It's a very favorite topic. So how do you know that you might be tested on this? You need to know. So keep this in mind. 100 is never equal to 100%. So you will be given a sample poll or a survey, a sample poll then. So you will try to confuse with the total figure, number which is total, and a percentage of this total. So please remember, whenever you see such words, proportion, majority, density, these, rate. So whenever you see such type of words, these are all percentage related. They are not actual. So for that matter, rate, average, all of these, they would figure out in this family. So please remember, increasing and decreasing percentages does not automatically mean increasing or decreasing numbers, or vice versa. So if you are actually, percentages are going up, I cannot say this is going up necessarily. This can't be. They are not directly correlated. So if I say X% of Y is, so can I necessarily say if this is going up, this will also go up? Can I say that? No, I cannot say that. So if this is going up, this can definitely, so everything, this is the star. Please remember, the Y becomes the star. So it's a very simple mathematical calculation that you have to pay attention to. You cannot have 100% association with respect to this. Okay, so in your last question, Pepsi decreased by, so when I say map last, your slides at Pepsi decreased by 100%. Yes, it can be 0 also. I obviously, by that is by 0. I was just giving you an example here. But total number of cans, suppose this becomes 0 for that matter. Still, now here I'm saying 3, but can I use the word more cans? I still could not, right? You're correct. It will obviously go by, but 100%, that means all I'm bringing. But can I say 100% would always be 0? Think here, will 100% always be 0 when I look at percentage? It can. So the point here that we are looking at is percentages and numbers cannot logically work together. Just keep that in mind. Let's move. Harm and benefit. GMAT will employ a very important thing, that only one apparent benefit or one harm. So for example, let's look at this example. Do you think this conclusion will make sense? Always. Will this be a logical conclusion? A new wonder drug has been discovered, which has been proven to increase the heart's functioning by more than 150. Although I have more than 150, a huge value. Hence, the new drug should be recommended by doctors suffering from heart disease. Do you think this is a valid conclusion? I can have a lot of side effects also, right? So just because I have one positive doesn't imply, one positive does not imply that the plan, or I would say the drug, is always beneficial, right? I cannot say that. I cannot say that. This always word would not come here. So these are things that you have to keep in mind, that one apparent benefit or one harm. So if suppose similarly, if it is one harm, I cannot say it is always harmful. One cannot mean it is always harmful. So just keep that in mind. So these are little things. Last, language shift. Now let's look at this. Now, what is language shift all about? So I might have certain arguments and all where I might. Now, for example, let's look at this example. Physical growth and maturity. Is this one and the same? Do you think this is one and the same? Physical growth and maturity. So if I'm saying the word growth, is growth same as maturity? Growth same as, it might look. So to mature might look to grow, but maturity has other aspects to it, right? Maturity is not always physical, right? It can be mental also. It can be other aspects to it. Now look at this. For this example, these fans are certainly best in class. These fans are certainly best in class. Good, great. I'm calling it best, high intensity, because they are tested by the highest fan certifying authority. Can you tell me what the problem is? What am I assuming? What is the error here? What is the error in my assumption? Testing at highest doesn't mean best. Very good. So the word highest and best. So just and plus tested. So just because something has been tested. So this is where the language shift is. I am saying tested. I'm just basing it on testing by the highest. But what is the result? What is my result of this testing? Has it passed? Has it failed? I'm not aware of. Plus, best can't be just because it is being tested by the highest fan certifying authority. So this is where the traps are. These are very classic. These are all your traps that you could see. Now, let's use them in questions. That's my whole intent. Let's apply them. Let's look at the first question. Now, I will launch the poll for the first question. So I will give you one. So I am launching the poll. 2 minutes to solve this question. Please start. Okay, so we've got A, B, C all together. Let's look at this now. Now, do you think the words in bold? And I'm surprised. I had marked some words in bold. Let's look at this. Now, it says that let's forget the methodology behind assumption and all of that. Purely on what we've learned. Let's see if we could do it. So I'm not teaching you how an assumption question has to be done or anything. Now it says, which one of the following is an assumption necessary for the critic's conclusion to be properly drawn? One thing that I can only keep in mind is, for this particular question, I need an answer which is true to the para. Everyone agrees? Can I say this? I need an answer which is true to the para. Can I say that? So I've not yet taught you what an assumption is, because there are some students who are doing this for the first time maybe. So I'm just saying, looking at it, necessary for the conclusion, looking at this particular word, necessary for the conclusion. So to be properly drawn, I know that my correct answer is true to the paragraph. This is what I will do. Now, when I say true to, I mean it should be 100% valid as per the para, right? Let's see now. A critic says a novel cannot be of the highest quality unless most readers become emotionally engaged with the imaginary world it describes. Thus, shifts of narrative point of view within a novel, either between first and third person or some sort, detract from the merit of the work. Since, so if you are gonna bring me shifts, since such shifts tend to make most readers focus on the author. So basically, from this story, what data I have? First data is, if you want a novel to be of highest quality, most readers become emotionally engaged. So a novel cannot be, very important, the word is cannot be of highest quality if the readers are emotionally engaged with the imaginary world. So I have a very straight line thought. Emotional engagement with imaginary world will hinder the highest quality of a novel. This is what I have. Next, if there is a shift, the shift will make most readers focus on the author and detract the merit of the work. This is it. Let's move down. Purely by the data that is given and the order of events, let us see. Most readers become, okay, emotionally engaged with the imaginary world by a novel only if the novel is of the highest quality. Now think carefully. There are students who selected this. I'm fine because you saw the word cannot and you saw the word only if. But what is right and left of only if? What is the order? Pay attention to the order in the first one. I am saying that my novel cannot be of highest quality unless the readers are emotionally engaged with the imaginary world. So it implies that readers need to be emotionally engaged. Everyone agrees? It needs to be emotionally engaged. They need to be. If they are not, then the novel cannot be of highest quality. Now, option A is saying they become this only if the novel is of highest quality. Is this 100% is the quality of novel? So to achieve highest quality of novel is being emotionally engaged. Really, the only if the novel is this emotional engagement will happen. Do you think this is a necessary condition? Is it 100% valid, always true? Think. Is it always true? Can there be other reasons? Can there be other ways how you can be emotionally engaged? As per this, my relationship is only about if they are not emotionally engaged, then the quality of the novel will be lost. But can I say for emotionally engagement with the imaginary world, the novel has to be only if the novel is of highest quality? Only. The order of events is the problem. This is a classic swap. You have done a alternate cause trap. You have changed the order. Emotionally engagement, highest quality is not necessary for emotionally engagement, but emotionally engagement is an important factor for my highest quality in a novel. So students with option A, are you getting the problem? What is important for highest quality? Emotional engagement is important. But for emotional engagement, only if novel is of highest quality, that is not an important thing. This is not always true. There can be other reasons also for being emotionally engaged with the imaginary world. So I hope this is a very classic alternate cause trap. Clear with this, everyone? Can we move? Next. It says that a novel is generally not considered to be of highest quality. Okay, good. This looks nice. Unless, now this has an amazing trap. Unless it successfully engages, pay attention to the students who picked up B, engages the imagination of most readers. Now this looks visually very attractive, but carefully look at this line. You are saying emotionally engaged with the imaginary world. And this is saying imagination of most readers. This is a classic language trap. Visually, the word imagination, imaginary, are they one and the same? Is imagination and imaginary world one and the same? It is not, right? So this is a classic language trap that you could see. Next, most readers cannot become emotionally involved with a novel's imaginary world. Now look at this. Imaginary world. Imaginary world. But this is imagination of most readers. This is where the cross is. If they focus on the author. Now this visually, do you see this? It is in the last line because such shifts tend to make most readers focus on the author. So it is detracting from the merit of the work, and its shift tends to focus. The word is tend to. Tend is not 100%. Tend is there is a possibility. So I am also maintaining the word if here, if they focus on the author, they cannot become emotionally involved. So let's keep this option. Most readers regard a novel's narrative point of view as representing perspective. The para is not discussing this. This is a classic out of the story option. This doesn't discuss this thing. And shifts in narrative serves no literary purpose. This also is a out of the story kind of an option. So among all this works as the, so I can be 100% sure is what it clearly says. It cannot be of highest quality unless readers are involved. Thus, if there is a shift in narrative, it detracts you from the merit of the work because such shifts tend to make readers lose focus on the, most readers focus on the author, tend to make focus on the author. So if you're focusing on the author, what will happen? You will lose track of the work, and that is what option C mentions. I hope you have paid it. So more than the correct answer, I would like you all to observe the traps. That was the intent of today's session. Getting a correct answer is not the intent here. I'll explain. Yes. See, this one says that most readers cannot be emotionally involved. So if you're not, cannot be emotionally involved, why? Let's look at the para. Let's shift to the second line of the para. Shifts of the narrative. If there is a shift in narrative, what will that shift do? It will detract. It will detract from the merit of the work. So what does the word detract mean? Detract means it will make you move away from what the work is all about. And such a kind of shifts will make us focus more on the author. That means if there is a shift, the focus of the author is not same as merit of the work. Merit of work. They are not compatible. They are not compatible. Either I have merit of the work or I have focus of the author. Now, as per my para, emotional engagement is needed for what? What is emotional engagement needed for? Emotional engagement is needed for the work, not with the author, right? Do you agree to this? So Prakhar, does this make sense? First, what the para is saying? Emotional engagement is needed for the work, not for my author. So option C says you cannot be emotionally involved if you are focusing on the author. Clear? I hope it is clear for everyone now. Can we move to the next question? So pay attention to the traps. Let's look at this. Now this question. Now this question, I will obviously not launch the poll. Here I would like to go, and this is very easy. I would like to show you something with this question. Now let's read it. It says the violent crime rate. So it all about, I can skip that. In M is 60% higher now than it was 4 years ago. The corresponding increase in P is only 10%. So when I say only means slight increase per se. Now, should you automatically think in your mind, should you think, oh, only 10%? This is 60, this is 10. So should this automatically come to your mind that 10 is less than 60? Can you say that 10 is less than 60? We just learned statistics traps, right? Can we say 10 is less than 16 absolute numbers? Can I say that? We can't. Very good. Why? Because what word are we using? We are using percent here. So whenever we see the word percent or any rate, we cannot say that these are absolute less and more in values. Please remember this. These figures, so all of these figures that I spoke of in the first line, support the conclusion that residents of this are more likely to become victims. Residents of this. So when I say residents, are we saying rate, percentage? No, I'm talking of number. I am talking of absolute value, right? Do you agree that my premise is in percentage, but my conclusion is in absolute value? Do you see that? Does this make sense now? Can you have premises in percentage and only one perspective of it? And can you be 100% sure in numeric aspect with my conclusion? Can you do that? We can't, right? We just can't. That doesn't go. That is what is classic statistic trap. Look at this. The argument above is flawed because it fails to take into account what? So what would be? Going by A, B, C, D, E, logically, immediately. Yes, perfect. That's my answer. Now look at this. This is talking of what it fails to take into account. It fails to take into account, which is the closest one. Are we dealing with population density over the past 4 years? Plus, is the story about past 4 years? No, it was about 4 years ago versus now. The whole comparison is ago versus now, right? So over the past 4 years, that was another trap. Then the rate of growth over this is something I'm not discussing. All of this don't make sense. Ratio of violent to non-violent. This again is nothing of my concern. During the past 4 years, again, doesn't make sense to me. The violent crime rates, okay, of M. Now, just because I saw the word rate, I will not cross. I have to understand rate is in association with what? These are things that I'm taking in. Rates in this 4 years ago. I'll just keep this because I am comparing the rates now. Based on rates now, I'm coming to absolute value. I can't do that. I have to also compare rates in the past ago, and then only can I have a 100% absolute number. I cannot only look at one perspective and give my correct answer. Let us keep this. How this expenditure, this everyone will remove. This is the easiest option to remove. Expenditure is not my parameter. So going by this, I'm only left with option D. So do you see how what I really meant by the trap with statistics? So I purposely just put these things in highlight and to show you how beautifully traps are created. What we only need to do is we need to observe. So if you become smart observers, so narrow down your focus. So when I say narrow down your focus to the para, observe what the evidence is based on and what my conclusion is based on. Do they logically make any sense? Is there any logical sense between them? Or is there a gap? Since there was a gap, the examiner has created this question. The question also is a flawed question, right? B talks perfect. I totally agree. But now you have to understand the question is, so that's where I'll come to the last part, Adarsh, is one last thing that I had mentioned right in the beginning, the trick behind correct answer. What is the trick behind correct answer? That I have to pay attention to what? Question requirement. What is the question requirement? What is my question requirement, Adarsh? The question requirement is I have to find a flaw because the para itself has a flaw. So argument is flawed because it fails to take into account what? So this is what, so how this rate in this over past years compares with the corresponding rate, even if I take this into account, does it really answer my question? My question needs me to find the flaw between the evidence, the gap between the evidence and the conclusion. So this gap, there is a flaw, an incorrect gap. What is it is what I require. Why can't I 100% say that the residents of this are more likely to become victims of violent crime than the residents of this? Why can't I say 100% is what the requirement of the question was. We'll move to the next now. The last question of the day. Okay, I'm launching the poll for you. Okay. So I'm sharing the poll results. Again, we've got myriad of answers, no problem. So it says conclusions. Which of the following conclusions is best supported by the information number? Now, before I go into this, I've just written correct answer, remember, will be the most neutral. Most neutral. When I say most neutral means it will be 100% valid. 100% valid as per the para, especially for which kind of questions? The true to kind of questions. Even for the others, every question, it should be 100% valid as per the storyline. closest to the data points and answer the question requirement. I'm talking of conclusion. This says number of patents granted to inventors by whatever dropped from this to this. Now, to be very honest, when I read this, I don't really stop and think and start calculating. I just pay attention to number of patents have dropped and I see a timeline. Spending on research and development, it peaked. I know that there's a rise and whatever this is in 19, some another new number I saw was only this in this. So when I saw this goes this, that means I know that in 1978, it came down. So while reading, my whole idea was because I know there's a drop and a rise during this period. Now then, what do you mean by this period? Of course, this is the 1978 when this was decreasing. So plus this is the clue. Where do you see the decrease? You see the decrease here. So you know that this period is nothing but 1978 that we are discussing. Germany and Japan increase the percentage. Now this is percentage of this spent on this development to this and this respectively. One thing I know that Japan has increases there. Now very important rule as I told you is while looking for correct answer, while one looks for the correct answer, stick to the data. Stick to your house. This is your house, safest. This is God. This is your house. Go to your house. Stay as close to your house. Let's see. There is a direct relationship between size of a nation's GNP and number of inventions it produces. Inventions, students with A. Where do you see inventions? I see patents. Do I see invention? Students with A. Look at the trap. Did you see this? What trap do you think it is? What trap? This of course is a language shift. Classic trap. The para is not speaking about it. It's about patents. Is patents and inventions one and the same? I just need to understand this. Is it one and the same? And do you have this relationship in the para? Can you be 100% sure? You can't, right? Next, Japan and Germany spent more money. This looks nice on R&D in 1978 than did United States. This looks very nice. Students with B. What is the trap here? Anyone else? Anyone can tell me the trap? Option B says they spent more money. Spent more money. And what is this saying? We are talking percentage of this. What trap? Classic trap. We just did that. It's a stats trap. Pay attention. You know, the problem is we are just looking at in flow. Japan, some money, but we are not being observant. Very specific closest data points. Stick to the data. Be an observer. A comprehender cannot nail an exam. An observer, then comprehension will help you nail this exam. Please understand this, what I just said. If you only understand and try to understand and find an answer, it cannot be the only methodology. There has to be a blend of observational understanding. What you observe and then what you generate in your mind is what is actual comprehension. Comprehension doesn't mean that you've just understood mota mota what is there. You have to be very clear with what the data is, visible data. This is a classic statistics trap. Next, amount of money. A nation spends amount of money directly related to number of inventions. Same trap. Again, a stats trap. Again, inventions, patented this is. But this first one was a language trap. Invention and patent not one and the same. Between this and this, between 64, okay, and 78, US spent a larger percentage of its GNP. Now, this is talking of percentage of GNP. Is the para speaking of percentage of GNP? Yes. US has spent in 64 around this, okay, 3, and in 78, 2.2, and, sorry, and development than did Japan. Now, obviously, I know Japan is also spent. Now, Japan, I don't have data for 1964, but I have data for 1978. It has increased. I can say it can increase from zero also, right? It can be a minute increase that we are looking from a value zero investment to some increase. I can see 1.6. So this whole thing is spending is what we are looking. Spending a larger of this and this than did Japan. Can I infer this from the para? Looking at the value, this is 2.2 for US and I am talking of 1.6 for Japan. Can I infer this from the para? I can, right? Okay, I'll come to that for question 2, whatever the construction is. Both West Germany and Japan will soon surpass. So this is future. Do I have data? That too in the number of patents granted. This doesn't make sense. This is a very bad option. D is my correct answer. Now, so I hope you've understood the traps. My whole agenda for today's session was to show you the traps more than explaining what to do with a question type of conclusion supported. I was not in that intent of all that. My basic intent was to show you the construction of options, the errata in options. So I hope you saw how tricky GMAT can create options, but it can be very easy if you stick to what the para is trying to say. Does this make sense? Now for your doubts. Any doubt? So I hope everyone could see this. So I had does in question option 2 mean Japan and Germany together or each alone? Okay, it says Japan and Germany spent more money on this. It's not together. It's not together. It is spent. It's individually that we are looking at. Dan did this. So because if it together, the word together would have been there. In A, if it was patents. Okay, Prakhar, if it was patents in A, direct relationship between size of nation's GNP. Now, do you see that? I'm not only cancelling because of the number. It's about number of patents. Do you have size of the nation's GNP? Again, what are we discussing? We're discussing percentage and there is a direct relationship between number. Where do you see that in the para? Do we see that in the para? I only have that the number of patents granted in US dropped this. But I don't have any other data for other places, no? It is dropping. But there is a direct between size. It was percentage, so size can't come into picture. Again, there is the same trap, the statistics trap, right? So I hope all of you could see the use of traps, at least in what kind of various traps. Statistics is the most common trap that you get in your exam, followed by your causation and language shift. These are the three which are actually very, very important. Very important. And I will take you back to the first slide if I have to close my session today is this. I always tell my students, pay attention to this. Be focused on what is stated. Recognize flaws, observant of deviations in options. So these three things are actually the key to CR. If you keep that in mind, I think everything else can be taken into consideration. Okay, so I will end my session. So we come to an end. Any doubt, anything, you can put it in the Q&A. Anything that you would like to discuss, you can put it in the Q&A. I would definitely take your doubts. No problem on that. So we are having a Thanksgiving offer per se. So you can definitely, in case if you are not a student with us, so I'm just putting a link. You can directly click on this. And yes, the usual stuff. So we've got this. If you want help with the applications, I've posted the links. And yes, any queries, anything, you can definitely follow us. Thank you.